Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I am Anareta Bashaliva, along with co-host Dr. Viktor Fett, Dr. Katerina Shrey, and our program producer, Professor Larry Sherray. We host a weekly discussion panel on Russia's war on Ukraine with guests from Ukraine, military experts, medical personnel, academics, artists, literary figures, and relief workers. Our panel is recorded and circulated nationally and internationally. We appreciate your comments and feedback. Special thanks to Marshall University Libraries and MUIT for making this weekly event possible. If you're joining us live on Teams, please feel free to use the chat to post any question for our guest. Today's guest will be introduced by Dr. Viktor Fett.
Thank you very much, Anara. It's my pleasure to introduce our new friend from across the Atlantic, Viktoriia Medvied, or Vic Medvied, is originally from Ukraine. She joined us, however, from Scotland, from St. Andrews University, where she is a PhD student, and she will tell us more about herself in a moment. She will talk about Ukrainian literature during the war, the stories of resilience. Please, Vic, microphone is yours for the next 40 minutes, as long as you want it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Victor. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here with you and to share some things, some of my thoughts, some of my ideas, and a little bit of my experience as a PhD student, and also not only as a PhD student, I would say, but more of as as a Ukrainian published author of children's books. However, I haven't published anything since the war started. Maybe this meeting, maybe this our conversation will give me inspiration to start finishing. Yeah, it sounds funny, but still, to start finishing my short story. Anyway. So I am a PhD student of the University of St. Andrews, and my thesis is about Ukrainian children's books about the war. The focus of my research is on cognitive metaphor, which is how the books represent difficult and unspeakable, vulnerable topics to younger audiences. Also, I'm writing about trauma-informed narration, which is how to narrate non-traumatically. How to explain difficult things to children in simple and non-traumatizing words, that is to say. And also I'm as a part of my linguistic self, I am researching the topic of surjik, which is a mixture of Russian and Ukrainian language. So its rules, its tools, and the way it works, and this kind of interesting linguistic interference, I would say. So yeah, I'm doing all sorts of things. But I want to show you a few examples of something that I've been researching. I need your help, I think, just telling me whether you can see the slides or not. Can you see?
Yes, they show up great. Yes, we can see them.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so thank you so much again for having me here. And I want to talk about Ukrainian children's books about the war. And the scope of my research is focused on the books of 2014, which were published between 2014 to 2025. Basically, I would say the books about the war. Yeah, so not only about the war that has started with the full-scale invasion, but the war, I would say, that was located in the eastern part of Ukraine. Since the war started, the variety of books for children and for young adult readers is just astonishing, is amazing. For example, this slide shows you the amount of book that has been written only in 2024, written and published. So just 23 books, and I think I haven't included at least 5 of them, or maybe up to 10 of new ones. So you can see only 1 year, for example, and these are the books that are narrating about the war, narrating about something that is somehow linked to the war, or maybe has a war as its background. So these are the books that are the same, that are a part of my research interest, and that were written and published in 2023. Again, astonishing number, 38 books per 1 year, and the topic is narrowed to the war only. So Ukrainian children's and young adult writers are narrating subjects they previously tended to avoid. Because the war started, I think not only the whole nation, but especially authors, and I would say Ukrainian authors, became braver, stronger, and more inspired and more courageous to speak about anything and everything, I would say. So we began finally discussing with the children matters that we had never dared to address because the times require it. For example, this book is written by an amazing author, journalist, and mother, Alina Odzemko, who is my friend as well. So this book is called, from Ukrainian, Why My Father Is Not at Home. So basically, Чому тато не вдома. Children are very curious and they are constantly asking questions. I know it. I don't have my own children, but I have my niece, and whenever I have a conversation with her, she would go about everything. She would ask me all the possible questions. So I think it's no wonder that children are asking questions when they don't have their dad at home. So for example, Alina Odzemko is addressing the question why my father is not at home when the father is a soldier. So he's fighting in armed forces of Ukraine. He has been drafted and the son is missing him, obviously, and he's calling him. So authors are trying to find ways to narrate about that, and they're writing books that could be read maybe together with the children and to find peace and to find maybe relief in such books. And along with that, we started narrating not only about the war and not only about, for example, what is exploding out of the window and where has my father gone or something like this. Along with that, I think authors became more and more courageous in many different ways. For example, just this year, no, it's not this year because it's already a new year, sorry. In 2024, there has been written a book which is called Майже хороші хлопці, which translates as Almost Good Guys. Now, so maybe as the cover could give you a hint, you could see two boys. They are, I think the action, like the main plot, is being developed in 2016. When ATO, антитерористична операція, like anti-terrorist operation, which is again the war, if we want to be straightforward and honest, has already started. This book narrates about LGBT community. So before this book, actually this is the only one I think that is explicitly talking things through. One more example of bravery of Ukrainian authors is Усі мої тривожні дзвіночки by Yevgenia Babenko. Yevgenia Babenko, so sorry, didn't translate the name of the book. So it's all my, I would say, anxious alarms or all of my alarms, something like that. So Yevgenia Babenko, she's a script writer. She writes different amazing things. She writes TV series and she writes mainly for TV, advertisement and things like that. And also she wrote a book in 2020, I guess 2020, at the end of 2023 year. Yeah, so she's talking about the war is not her focus in this book, but still it is discussed. It is discussed, and it is discussed quite honestly, quite straightforwardly. Again, it has not been common for a young adult book before. And apart from that, the main topic that the book focuses on is harassment, and especially sexual harassment. I think such books, for example, for me, they are like therapy. I'm an adult, of course, and And yet I still have some topics that I'm not really comfortable discussing, or I'm not really comfortable talking about. And I think teenagers, they are extremely vulnerable, not even mentioning children. So I think they need to talk things through, and such books could be their manuals on how to behave in this situation, or maybe what to do and not to do, not to find yourself in such a situation that the main character happened to be in. So the books became more trauma informed also. Introductions on how to read it are written by psychologists, and other specialized materials are provided with the book. I'm talking about, for example, um, um, such books which are discussing difficult topics, which are not really easy to be talked through. They usually are accompanied. I hope you can see me flipping the book. So, for example, one more wonderful example of books, which is called "Таємні історії маленьких великих перемог." So, secret stories of small and big victories. So it was written by Tanya Stus. She is an amazing Ukrainian author. And yeah, so for example, the preface, the introduction of the book is written by a psychologist, a professional psychologist, which has never been common for a book before. So it says, for example, how to read this book. So it contains of different short stories of different things, for example, relocation, saying goodbye to your pets, different things that Ukrainian children are going through. So basically, it gives you a hint of what to do with this book, and how to make it as effective as possible. And it says, I love this one, it says, Книжка для зцілення, so a book to heal you, which is really nice. Apart from that, Ukrainian authors also, I am really honored, and I'm really privileged to be in such community. I have a lot of friends among Ukrainian authors, and all of them, they say that when they want to address the topic of the war, or the topic of something controversial or something really vulnerable, they usually go to a psychologist, or psychologists, like practical psychologists, or people who are studying psychology academically. So, for example, writing one of my chapters on the books which are trauma-informed books about the war, I use this one, for example, PTSD workbook, like, for example, to illustrate what could be talked through and how different angles could be approached, and so on and so forth. Also, I'm working on one of my books as an author, and this book, for example, it helps me illustrate it. I think, yeah, I'm still choosing. I'm not really sure whether I'm going to use it or not, but I think I have to know what I'm doing, and what could be included there. So this book is called Різнокольорове дитинство. So it translates as colorful childhood. So it's game therapy, book therapy, music therapy, esotherapy, fairy tale therapy, whatever, and so on and so forth. So basically, I think it's really important at such times to incorporate such psychological aspects in any kind of books that you're writing or you're working with. So yeah, striking variety, and a lot of people, especially skeptical people, who see such variety, which we're going to come to discussing a bit later. Now, they would think that it's impossible to produce such quantity of books, still keeping high quality. But it's not the case with Ukrainian authors, I promise. So since the war started, you see the picture, there has been more than 130 books on the war written and published. And they are of a really high quality. I will show some more examples, both on slides and also as paper versions, because I'm an old school person and I really need doing my research or just reading for myself for my leisure time. I need something paper that I can flip through and sniff and really enjoy in all possible ways. So there are plenty of books that have been written about the war. And some of them, I'm pretty sure you know. For example, Grigory Falkovich has written a wonderful book, Rudy, і Чумацький шлях. Yeah, we will talk about some of them in details a bit later. So I want to draw your attention to one really wonderful book, which is called A Yellow Butterfly, written by Alexander Shatokhin. Alexander Shatokhin is a Ukrainian illustrator, and he doesn't write books. I think you would wonder, and you would really be interested. So why is his name written on this book, right? And where's the name of the writer? So the thing is, he doesn't write text, and he illustrates books, and that is why he decided to write, or basically, I would say, more appropriate in this situation, not to write but to draw a silent book. Which is about a yellow butterfly. I'm not going to give you any spoilers. Maybe with some books I will, but not with this one. So basically, a butterfly is a symbol of hope. It's a post-war situation in Ukraine, which is depicted in this book. And there is a butterfly that gives this little girl hope. So, which I find really difficult, for example, both for authors and for their target audience, who are parents and their children, that the peril of authoring a contemporary Ukrainian book is reiterating the news. So basically, writing a book, you don't want to be repeating the news, which is dreadful enough. And I think we really have lots of sources of news, and if we repeat them, it's going to do no good. For example, this is a book that was a really brief answer, brief and I think immediate answer to the war when it erupted. So it's called The War, The Children Who Will Never Read Books. As you can see, it's quite explicit, yeah. So, and it's also traumatizing, which we really want to avoid. One more example of such books is called Ще один день війни, which is One More Day of the War, or Another Day of the War, by Yulia Tverytina. Unfortunately, I don't know this author in person, so that is why I had a difficulty pronouncing her name. But anyway, so there are all the dreads of the war, all the sufferings, and all the even. I think it's not really appropriate to say, but it's beautiful in a way. For example, this rain-like illustrations and so on. So I think we should, as authors and as researchers, as scientists, as just book people or bookworms, which I'm really proudly calling myself, we should avoid repeating the news if we can do so. Books should be fairly straightforward, but not too traumatic. And talking of them, I think a wonderful example is a book which is called Dim, which is Home, written by Katerina Tikhozora. So basically, it's a narration about a family the members of which need to flee the war, and they are losing their house because the missile hits it, and so on and so forth. But afterwards, they realize that their home is not their house. Yeah. So yeah, a little bit of spoilers that I promised not to do. One more book, which is again, I love this one because it compares the war with travelings in a way. For example, the reality of Ukrainian children now, it's not really. I would never say that it's really bright or it's inspiring. Because they have a lot of difficulties. For example, sometimes they are suffering from blackouts, and their parents, just to make a cup of tea, they need to be like cave people, cavemen, who are boiling their kettles on the gas stove, which is again touristic. So children sometimes they have to spend night on karimat or on yoga mats downstairs in the basement. And sometimes they have to eat sublimate food. Now, for example, rice that is common for tourists who go far, far away from civilization in the mountains. But the good thing that the author, a really good friend of mine, Sasha Wojciechowska, she's saying that it will not always be like that, and that this experience, not only this experience will be healing for us, I don't know, purifying, healing, and maybe enlightening in a way, but also all of the things that we're using right now, they are not bought in vain. So we can use, for example, those gas stoves and those generators of electricity that we right now need, just to make blackouts bearable. Now, at some point, someday we will take them and we will go to the mountains, somewhere far, far, far away, and we will bake an apple pie. And also, Sasha gives a recipe of an apple pie, which is common for her family, which is kind of a heritage, cultural, um, cuisine related, whatever, from her grandma. Also, authors finally are approaching topics of mental difficulties, especially in the realm of children's psychology. For example, this book is called "Once Upon a Time I Got Lost," by it's written by Ірина Вакарчук. So одного разу я загубився. And basically, she is not naming it using any psychological terms, but she is describing a situation where a little boy who is being away from his home, I think it's not specified in the book, but they seem to be far away from their home. Maybe they moved away from Ukraine, maybe they fled Ukraine, and they are located in another country. So basically, he feels the situation when he doesn't know who he is anymore. So I would call it derealization, but the author is not, again, overloading the audience with any psychological terms. And she's saying that Once Upon a Time is just a book that makes you feel better. So basically, this little boy, he feels overwhelmed by a lot of things that are happening. He feels lost. He feels that his body is not his body anymore, and it's a wonderful journey where his father takes him by his hand and they go to the beach together. And again, no spoilers, but still, at the end, everything is really nice. Yeah, and he calms down, obviously. Also, an interesting aspect is that this book is not really comfortable for the main audience, I would say. So let me explain that. For example, a lot of children, uh, they they don't have their fathers at the moment, for example, because they are drafted to defend Ukraine in armed forces, and some of them, unfortunately, they lost their dads. So this book, where a boy is led by his father to the beach to enjoy the weather and so on, and to feel present in the moment, it could be really hurtful for them. So it's a part of my research, and I really, really enjoy it. And I could be talking about it, I think, like hours and hours and hours. But still, I decided to choose a few relevant examples, and I'm not going to be overloading you with lots of information. So as a main tool of writing such books on difficult and vulnerable topics, I find metaphors, especially cognitive metaphor, when you're explaining one thing, implicitly comparing it to another, I find it really helpful. So metaphors as a tool in depicting traumatic events. For example, this book, which is called The War and Little Vera, it doesn't use metaphors. It uses the character, which is called the war, and I think sometimes it's not really, it's not. I think it's not really the best way to do that. Let's put it this way. So basically, in this book, little Vera and her brother, they are fighting the war. You see, the war is an abstract creature, and it's eating, like gulping, all the homes, all the happiness, and all the family bonds, and so on and so forth. So two kids, they are brave enough to fight the war back. So Vera's little brother is throwing his favorite toy in it, and everything is ended. You see, like the war ends and everybody is happy. So maybe I think children, they are children, yeah, but they realize everything, and I think they understand everything sometimes even deeper than we do adults. So maybe cognitive metaphors in depicting traumatic events would work better. For example, this wonderful, wonderful book, which is written by Halina Kirpa, it's called Мій тато став зіркою, which is My Dad Became a Star. So it's a book that narrates about the war again, of the war not that started with the full-scale invasion, but the war of 2014. So in this book, a father of this little girl, who is the main character of this book, he dies in this book, so he disappears. Again, defending his country, and it's really, really sad. And when mom and her daughter, they are discussing what could have happened with her daddy, mother doesn't want to traumatize her daughter, and she says that, now, for example, when winter comes, what do you notice? Like the green leaves, where do they go? And the girl is trying to she's trying to think, and she's trying to find the solution. And she's saying, oh, I think all the leaves are brushed off with the wind. And mother says, yeah, so the same happens to the soldiers who are defending the country. The war is like a really harsh cold wind that is brushing poplar trees. So this is the same way as the war works. One more book is using a metaphor of the fog to depict a mental health condition which mother has. So basically, I love this book because it's finally saying out loud that adults can have their own problems, and they are not powerful enough sometimes, and life could be really difficult, and children, they need to be aware of that their parents at some point, they could just lose it. They could feel down, or their mind could go foggy, or anything like this. So in this situation, which is called My Mom is a Mountain, which was written by Христя Венгренюк is saying that she's comparing explicitly, I would say, yeah, because of the illustrations mainly. So she's saying that the mom is like a mountain, and mountain is a natural occurrence, right? And it could exist in different states and different conditions. So sometimes it could be foggy, sometimes it could be covered in flowers and blooming and thriving and really powerful and energetic. But it could be also that, like smartphones screen, it could be broken. Yeah. And sometimes we need some days or even months to get things fixed. One more book, and I love the metaphor of the cat. So it's called Murkitsa Загубилася, which is Murkitsa. Mur, it's purr. Yeah, Kitsa is a kitty. So Murkitsa, it's purr cat, like purr, a cat that purrs, basically. So Murkitsa Got Lost is a book about relocation. So it's about internally displaced people. So I think mother and her daughter, basically, they are from Kiev. And when the war starts, the full-scale invasion, I mean, in February 2022, so their father is seeing them off to the railway station, where they take their cat with them also, like to evacuate the cat, and the father is going to defend the country. So basically, at some point, cat escapes the carriage, and it's really scared, and sometimes it gets protective, I think, symbolizing also Ukrainians and their inner state. Like, we're all scared. Sometimes we could be even rude, because I think we're just too scared and stressed, and we're not sure what is waiting for us in the future. Also, yeah, as you see, the books are really amazing. The books, there are plenty of them, but recent news, for example, I've read an article which was published today that Ukrainians, especially children's books, they are struggling at the moment, by which I mean that the main target audience of such books is abroad. So they cannot go to the shop and buy physical copies. And I'm really asking you for a favor. Please spread the word and do anything and everything to promote Ukrainian books around the world, especially because they are amazing, I think. Yeah, so we're not going to be doing now the book's favor, but we're going to be doing a favor to people who are reading them. So I wanted to show you some other examples of the books which I have not scanned yet, but which are still amazing. So this one, for example, it is called Гудзик, який хотів повернутися додому. So a button that wanted to go back home. And I think it represents all of us. Yeah. So all of Ukrainians, they are like small buttons, small, colorful, brave buttons that want to be back home when it's peaceful and safe to be there. So one more book, which is educating. It's called Космічні пухнастики вчать українську. So basically, space furries or space furry creatures. You see, it's really furry. They are studying Ukrainian, and there are some of the lessons on Ukrainian language which could be quite useful. As a part of my PhD journey, I was teaching Ukrainian as a foreign language, and I would say this book will really be helpful at that. Also, one more book which was published in 2023. It's young adult book, and it's called Zero. It was written by Yulia Ilyucha, a really wonderful woman, really strong and really resilient, and really a wonderful and mesmerizing author. So Zero. Zero, it's again Ukrainian way of saying zero. So it's a book about how does it feel to be different, and how does it hurt you, and does it hurt you at all or not? And also, as a background of this book, there is depicted war, of course. Not the big war, but again, I think it's not really correct to call the war like the big one that we're facing nowadays, compared to the war that started in 2014. So basically, yeah, so she's describing the war now that was covering Donetsk and nearby areas, and yeah, it's just wonderful. Being an adult, it's a pleasure to read it. One more is Kedi v Nebi. It's like trainers in the sky. I think if it could be turned into a song, I would repeatedly listen to it on and on and on and on. It's wonderful again, and it depicts different things. So, for example, self-injuries and self-harm, and also suicide, and different other topics. So, proving my point that authors are becoming more and more courageous and brave. One more book, which is called Тільки не гавкай. Just please don't bark. As you can see, there is a dog and its owner. So again, it's about evacuating people, and yeah, so sometimes it's really difficult to accommodate dogs in rented apartments or in temporary housing or something like this, because sometimes the owners think that, you know, dogs are dogs, and it's really difficult to control them, and we cannot be sure that they will behave and that the interior will suffer, and so on and so forth. So the owner is asking, please just don't bark, so that they don't know that you're here. It's a set of short stories, and it's wonderfully minimalistically illustrated as well. Yeah, and the last but not least of the books that I'm going to show you is going to be this one. It's by Marusia Sherbina, and it's called Yara. Yara, it's a name. It's a name of the girl who is, again, who has to flee her home and who needs to go to the western part of Ukraine where it's more or less safe. Also, what is interesting about this book, that the author who wrote it is only 17 years old. I didn't believe it at first. I started reading the book, and it gave me an impression that somebody who is like 35 or something like this, or I'm not an ageist actually, so it would give me an impression that a mature person has written this book. And again, it made me think that our teenagers, especially Ukrainian contemporary teenagers, they are much more mature than, for example, we used to be. Yeah, and yeah, so once again, I'm asking you for a favor. If you could spread the word that Ukrainian books are amazing, which they really are, and if you could do something, for example, to promote them in the world, because the target audience of the books is not in Ukraine, and they cannot buy them all the time. Yeah, because because this is how things are. For example, what I do to promote Ukrainian culture and to help Ukrainian publishing industry. I'm a part of St. Andrews University as a student and as a teacher of Ukrainian language of Ukrainian as a foreign language for evening classes, or at least I used to be last semester. Now I'm trying to be focusing more on my thesis, basically, because I will have to submit it at some point soon. So what do we do? At University Library at St. Andrews, you can order up to 5 or I think 5 to 10 books per month. Now, so what I'm actually doing, we have Ukrainian community there. So I'm ordering different books that I want to read and which I think other people might want to read. Also, what I was doing is fundraising for the libraries, and it's really creative, and sometimes it sounds really crazy, but it really worked. We managed to fundraise £250, which was really good. So my idea was to sell Ukrainian handmade socks to Scottish people, and using this money I bought some of the books. Of course, you can see not only Ukrainian books, I mean all of them are in Ukrainian, but some of them they are translations, and some of them are authentically written by Ukrainian authors, which supports the industry back in Ukraine and doesn't let it drown. So basically, yeah, we sold the socks, which my mom kindly agreed to provide for me back from Ukraine, which I'm really grateful for. And yeah, we bought some of the books. 45 books for Sumy region library, which is at the front line at the moment because of Kursk and Kursk region and things that are going on there. And also we bought some of the books, I think up to 20 books for Lviv library, because still I think it has to be said out loud that Ukrainian libraries are not funded enough. And yeah, it would mean a lot for authors if you purchase or if you do something to purchase more books to promote them whenever you are. So that's the message that was attached to each of the pairs. And it says, by purchasing this pair of socks, your funds will be used to purchase books for Ukrainian libraries. And I think it made everybody feel warmer. And yeah, it made everybody happier, at least just a bit. Thank you for your attention. And I would be really happy to hear any of your questions. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Vic, Victoria. This was absolutely fascinating, and I already have first hand raised from Dr. Leonard Deutsch, please. Dr. Deutsch is our former graduate dean of Marshall University and regular viewer and participant of our program, and he is also expert on poetry. So please, Leonard, ask any question in English.
You have put together an impressive list of books. How do you go about compiling your bibliographies? Do you survey publishers? To what extent do you use Google? And what portion of the books are actually published in Ukraine, and what percentage or portion are published elsewhere?
Yeah, thank you, Leonard, for your question. So I would say, how do I make the list of the books that are published? So we have a few sources. For example, there are catalogs now that you can go and flip through, but also I'm a part of one of the media sources, which is called Chytomo. So basically, we publish articles on new books, and I am able to track it that way. Also, I'm using Facebook. I'm an old school person, so I really prefer Facebook, and I'm really lucky enough to have a lot of authors as my friends, at least on Facebook, not in real life. Not all of them I know face to face in real life, but yeah, I'm keeping track on that, and I'm kind of really a fanatic person in this. I'm kind of really crazy about that now, so it helps me do that. And answering the question about what percentage of the books are printed in Ukraine. Is that what you meant?
Yes.
Yeah, all of them, they are printed in Ukraine. So as far as I know, I need to maybe double check that, but the biggest publishing houses, they are not relocating their publishing like instruments and facilities anywhere. So even in Kharkiv, at the city that is really struggling at the moment, they are still printing books, which is fascinating. And so is in Lviv.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you very much, Vic. Thank you. More questions, please, from our viewers. Please don't hesitate, ask your hand. Otherwise, I will hog the conversation because among many hats that I wear, there is also children's literature in many languages. Anara, please.
I think that you are talking about very important, extremely topic, but still many people do not understand how it is important. And I like your comparison with therapy. If adults can accept therapy, for children are taught, and teenagers also are totally forgotten and the situation. And I think that in general, the needs of children and young people are actually not considered when we talk about the war. And I co-edited actually a book, Children and Youth in Post-Conflict Peace Building. So even in the middle of the war, we should think how we can build the peace. And in this case, Ukraine is as a pattern for other republics in the former Soviet Union. That's why it's extremely important. It's not just matter of Ukraine, it's a matter of all post-Soviet world and post-Soviet countries around the Russia, aggressive Russia. So that's, and what is actually my question is that we have enormous actually how to say, heritage of children literature based on Russia's approach, on the Soviet approach. And what we can do with this, because sometimes we discuss that monuments of Pushkin or other well-known writers were destroyed, but children might be puzzled. So how we can deal with this conflicting information, and how we can actually, what we should do with this tremendous heritage that we have right now. And that's my question as an expert who is dealing with the new generation, with the new situation and young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Anara, for your question. I think I'm not really an expert in the field of Russian children's literature, or I would say a heritage Russian, like post-Soviet children's literature or something like this. And I think it would be really interesting in this aspect, like in this context, to talk to one of my colleagues, wonderful Sarah King, for example. She is a PhD student of St. Andrews as well, and she's doing her thesis on how Russian, or I would not say Russian again, yeah, like how Soviet children's books were describing or were depicting other national minorities. And knowing a little bit about that, I would say we just, maybe it's my Ukrainian angry part is speaking, and I have all the rights to be, so I would say we just have to cancel them. Yeah, so parts of the books that I have managed, I have been lucky to hear about. For example, Sarah is researching different things. They are really just horrible. I mean, it's not really scientifically formulated, but you've got my idea and you've got my point, because they are really chauvinistic, and they are at a lot of points they are racist. And I think this racism and also any isms in bad meanings, they don't have any place in the future. And I think that the world has to become a better place, and if we have to be more selective, and we have to be really strict with such choices, especially when it comes to children. So if they if they contain any things that are a heritage of so-called harmful Soviet heritage, I would say, for example, looking down on national minorities or depicting, for example, Chinese people in yellow color compared to Russian characters who are depicted and illustrated in completely white, like I think it's unacceptable. Yeah, so I would say, for example, for now, definitely there is there is no place for such discussion. My answer is one and only. I would never ever want any child read them.
Great. I think that the war is also a window of opportunity to create something new, and that's actually maybe a need to create a new approach, new program, and identify priorities
Yeah.
for the future books, especially for children, for future education. Thank you again for
Thank
your
you.
very interesting approach.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Please ask more questions. We have time. And Vic, I just wanted to comment. Thank you for sharing with us your deep analysis. Rarely we have such an expert who focuses and gives us so intense review and content. And it's so touching that I'm sure many of us are crying right
Thank
now.
you,
I do.
Victor.
And my another, not question, but observation is that what you are doing also possibly very different from what people did before, because just right now we connect by remote means which did not exist even in the United States, actually before COVID pandemics, because COVID gave us those remote lectures and connections. I haven't used Zoom or Teams before that. So for good or for worse, we can do it. We can form international, worldwide networks, communities so easily now that this is our weapon. This is our tool. And I prefer to deal with young generation who know their buttons on Facebook than with old timers who say, I don't have letter U in my alphabet and things like this. You know it better than me, what technical obstacles you have. So my general question was, the growing generation which now reads these books, like my grandson, which is 7, I hope he will read my translation of Rudy. At least I gifted it to him for Christmas. And he immediately said, we can go to book school fair and you can talk about this book. He is very pragmatic young man. So question is, how you think this generation, which is digital, which probably has much less space for paper books than our generation, how they will deal with all that? Will it all be just online, or we still will have libraries with real books and real shelves?
Victor, thank you so much. I wanted to say, before answering your question, I would like to say a huge, huge thank you for promoting Ukrainian authors and Ukrainian writers. Your translation, it gave voice of Grigory Avramovich Falkovich, and at least the minimal amount of people who found out about him and who have heard his name is 100, which is the amount of the books that you have in paper. It's at least, of course, because these people, they will reach out to other people, and the people who are inspired or amazed by the story, they will reach out to other people, and so on and so forth. So I think at least 100 more alive souls, they know how wonderful it is. So it's a really huge thank you. I think you such people as you are, they are like bridges. They are connecting world in a way. So you are making it a better place. And talking about, coming back to answering your question about paper books and so on and so forth. So I would love to give an example, or maybe to draw a parallel. I was teaching English as a foreign language back in Ukraine. So I thought, for example, at some point of my teaching career, I got really anxious about because at some point there were more and more platforms, for example, Duolingo or something like this. So I started teaching and there were not so many apps, not so many sites, not so many opportunities. And now at some point of my career, I felt like I'm being bombarded by Quizlet, for example, Kahoot, and other things and so on. And I was like, oh my god, so artificial intelligence and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to have students at some point because everything is going to be delegated to robots. But the opposite thing happened. The more things got developed, such as programs and platforms and so on, the more students wanted to learn language face to face with an alive person, with a real person who can speak to them, who can maybe sometimes share their experience and so on. And I think the same thing will happen, fortunately, to paper books, because the more online gadgets we have, the more e-versions or like scanned PDF books or maybe reading apps we have, the more important and valuable will be the experience of the real paper book. I think it's irreplaceable. It's not going to be replaced, at least not by our generation, definitely.
Thank you. Thank you for also again for sharing your experience and insight. I need to add that as of this week, Rudy and the Milky Way is available free as electronic file on the publisher's website. I just sent an announcement to about 500 people more and posted it on Facebook. I don't have much presence on Instagram or Telegram or elsewhere, so please disseminate. Grigory Abramovich Falkovich asked me to do this, and we did this. This story was actually on our podcast for a couple of times. We invited him, and I wanted to ask you very briefly, if you can, we have time, to tell us about your travel and your meeting with Falkovich. That's very precious.
Yeah, that was really that was the best moment of my summer, to be fair. So basically, now my supervisor, Dr. Feiner, Emily Feiner, and her husband, who is a well-known Yiddish musician, Yiddish folklore music. He is an amazing person, and yeah. So if you see him, I think it's impossible not to. It's really impossible not to make friends with him or not to fall in love with his personality. So basically, we went to a conference which was located in Uzhhorod. Which was happening in Uzhhorod, the conference about Ukrainian culture and so on and so forth. So we had our section on children's books, the thing that we all love and really cherish. We met a few authors and we met illustrators. So it was a community of people who are creating Ukrainian children's books at the moment. So some of them they are residing at this moment in France, in Strasbourg. Some of them they are located in Ukraine, but everybody had an opportunity to see each other and to really experience this communication in real life in Uzhhorod at Ruta conference. And after that, my supervisor, Dr. Feiner, she was really impressed by Rudy. So she was really moved and touched by the book. Yeah, she was really deeply inspired by this book because it's really unusual, because the narration is not from regular teenager or a child who goes to basement all the time or something like this. It's really unique. It's when you see the war with the eyes of the dog, and it's really smartly written. So it's not only, for example, my owners took me to the west and that's it, but it's smart, it's intelligent, and it's amazing. It's just amazing. And Dr. Feiner asked me a little bit more about Grigory Avramovich Falkovich. Also, I knew about Falkovich, of course, because it's impossible not to know about him, being at least somehow involved in publishing or in media, in anything that is book related. So basically, we decided, since we're anyway, we're going to Ruta conference, which is in Uzhhorod, and I contacted Grigory Avramovich. I asked him where he was, and he said, I'm in, може хто не розуміє, гарне місто Коломия. So yeah, so if you don't know, Коломия is nice. Yeah, I don't remember the literal translation, but I'm working on it. Anyway, so yeah, he shared his location and we decided to go there. So we asked a taxi driver who became our friend on the way, Ivan Shola. We asked him to take us there and we stayed for a night in Pysanka Hotel, which is like in the shape of an egg. It's hilarious. Michael, my supervisor's husband, he was joking that we're going to be living in a yolk, you know, or the white or something like this because it's in the shape of an egg. And then we met Grigory Avramovich, and over a cup of tea or coffee or whatever, it depends on the person. So what they drank, we were having a discussion, and we were just we were carried away with the conversation. We decided to meet at least for an hour or for half an hour or something like this, but we ended talking to each other like for 4 hours, and I didn't really notice it. The time just flew by. He is just an amazing personality. He's unique, I would say, because we have a lot of figures, and he's just a giant in Ukrainian children's literature realm, I would say. And also, it was really interesting for me. One of the first times when I encountered Grigory Avramovich online was when I was just scrolling Facebook feed and so on, and I didn't bump in any of his posts, but instead I was just flipping through the pages of Facebook. And when the war started, everybody was trying to to step away from Russian heritage and Russian literature and everything like this. And one of the parents in one of the Facebook groups, so she was saying, for example, I used to read Kornei Chukovsky to my daughter, and he's really good. So what should I do? Who can I replace it with? And all of the answers, they were the same, and it really impressed me. So all of the answers were Falkovich, Grigory Falkovich, Grigory Falkovich, Grigory Avramovich. All of them, they were just, in one voice saying that Grigory Avramovich is just irreplaceable, again, like a unique, gigantic figure. And I think it's a real honor to know him and to be able. I think we're living in really wonderful times when you can just reach out to a living legend. So, which I did.
Thank you. I need to say from my side that the reason we in West Virginia know about Grigory Falkovich is that we were remotely introduced to his personality by my friend Zoya, who lives in Philadelphia, who is from Kiev and knows him for many, many decades. And she was very instrumental. She published a large review of his work in anthology, which I published in Frankfurt. This was before the full-scale war in 2020. And I didn't know about Falkovich at all. But when this review was published, I started looking up and connecting. And Zoya, who runs a literary club for former Kievans and everyone who cares in Philadelphia, is absolutely important here on the what we call East Coast of the United States. Hundreds of people are grateful to her. I did readings in her club many times. It's only 10 hours drive from my home, so we make it a travel. So we people like this are what's and here is Zoya. By the way, please, Zoya, open your face. Zoya Polevaya, Philadelphia. Please open your camera and face. Unmute yourself. Say something. Yes.
Okay. Hi.
Вітаю.
I am absolutely impressed by this young and beautiful person who is talking about the people whom we all know. But Victor, I just would like to be sure I'm not from Philadelphia. I'm from New Jersey.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on. So, yes.
Same thing.
No.
From West Virginia.
Same things. Yes, from West Virginia, it's
Okay.
about the same. But my club, which you were talking about, it's
New
23
Jersey, yes.
years already
Sorry.
in middle New Jersey. And of course, I'm very glad to know Grigory Falkovich from Kiev for more than 40 years. So I am very happy to hear all this conversation, and specifically about him, whom I knew probably as young as this beautiful lady who is talking about him right now. So thank you very much for being so great, for being so proactive, from helping Ukraine. And it was really a pleasure to hear you there.
Thank you so
very
much. Maria.
And
I would like to add a short story about Grigory Avramovich, if you don't mind. So I forget to mention something really, really important as for me. So when I reach out to him, Grigory Avramovich, he has his, I would say, what is this like? What is this? What I would call it? I don't know, face control, I would say. So his control question is, so про що будемо дружити? So what are we going to discuss about? And I was a bit, I was stunned, and I was just for a second, and then I said like about books, about something, something, this, and so on and so forth. And I told him a little bit about myself. I think it wasn't just a little. I think I just splashed it all out, and then he replied. He was really happy that I'm reaching out from Scotland. And at some point, I don't know why, but we had one of the workshops. Yeah, I know why now. We had a workshop, and yeah. So I was thinking, what could we think of when we're talking about Scotland? And I thought about a hairy cow. Like we have this hairy cows, and I asked Grigory Avramovich. I said, Grigory Avramovich, I know maybe it's a lot to ask, but could you write a short poem about a hairy cow? And he said, you know what, just write about it yourself. And I was like, oh yeah, but I'm not Falkovich. And he said, okay, so I'll help you then. Since you are not Falkovich, as you mentioned, yeah, so I will help you. And he wrote like instantly, I think in a day or maybe in a few hours, he wrote a wonderful and just amazing poem about hairy cow. If you want to, I will recite it, or I will just share it with you later.
Please.
So yeah,
Please do if you remember it.
I don't remember it by heart, but I remember the beginning. So I remember the translated version that we were trying to translate at some of the workshops at the university. But anyway,
Sure.
I think it's a shame to just yeah. Волохатої корови, волохаті навіть брови. Now, I remember it just a second. Yeah, корова. I will just type it maybe somewhere. Yes, it's called Scottish cow. If you don't mind, I will recite it in Ukrainian. So,
Please do.
Шотландська корова. It's called Scottish cow, and you will hear his style, his register. You will just hear it. So у шотландської корови все кошлате, навіть брови. Все у хутрі, як у ваті, тільки роги не кошлаті. А чому вона кошлата? Бо вона не дурнувата, щоб на свіжому повітрі, при морозі, ще при вітрі, їй ходити голяка, наче модниця яка, наче ті фотомоделі у Парижі чи у Делі. Там у тих курортних зонах, в оксамитових сезонах, несприятливі умови для шотландської корови. I just love it. And you see how lucky we are to live at the same time that this legend lives. I think it's impossible. Like Grigory Avramovich, I don't think he has ever been to Scotland. I'm not really sure. I think I asked him, but I don't think he has been to Scotland, and he has never seen a Scottish cow. But anyway, he imagined it, and I think he described it even better than those people who have seen it like many, many times. For example, me. I'm not Falkovich, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Thank you. Do we have any more questions, please, about Scottish cows or otherwise? Comments, questions? While people are thinking, I will just list a few names which came to my mind as we talked. names probably unknown to my Anglophone audience, or maybe even to the Scottish audience of Victoria. Janusz Korczak, Samuel Marshak, Kornei Chukovsky. Your Yiddish supervisor. Just to remind the viewer, for educational purposes, that the great Yiddish culture, including Ukraine, made impression. It was, of course, mostly devastated by Nazis and going with Holocaust, just like most of Ukrainian culture was devastated. Holodomor a few years before that. But what is left of Ukrainian, Yiddish, Polish cultures in this free and independent country is now getting together. And this is the reason we remember not only living legend Grigory Falkovich, but also everyone who formed, for example, poetry of my generation, those great Jewish authors who wrote in Russian and Polish, Korczak, Marshak, Chukovsky, and dozens of others, many of whom perished, generation of my grandfather and further on. So we are very lucky to have those people with us today, and this is tribute to everyone who is not with us today. I was 9 when Chuck died. I could have known him. I know his relatives, and that's another beautiful story. Thank you, Vic. And if we have no more questions, we'll conclude our session. Do you care to say a few more words in conclusion, please?
So I would say that Ukrainian children's authors, and just in general authors, I think we need to reinvent the word for brave. I think we need another word for brave and resilient. So yeah, I think following the examples of Ukrainian authors that are doing unimaginable before, and really they are wizards of the new times, and I think it's really a super nation that will definitely win, because we are the light. Yeah, we are the light, and we're fighting the darkness. So I think everything will be a bit more Ukrainian when we win, but to win we need support, and if you support at least Ukrainian book sector, it will be very, very valuable. Thank you so much.
Все буде Україна. Слава
Yeah.
Україні.
Героям слава.
Thank you so much, Vic, for wonderful presentation. This concludes our 150th week of MUkraine discussion group at Marshall University, West Virginia. Please come again.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me once again, Victor, and thank you for giving me the chance to say out loud things that are really important for me. Thank you.